When something big happens, we spread the word and tell the world. Power 98.7. Now we're talking.
The time now is 11 minutes past 10. You're in Power Perspective this evening with your host, Tessa Dooms. As I said, a very concerning stat coming out of Olivenhout-Bosch, just up the road here, really, in between Johannesburg and Pretoria. You get the Oliven area, and one of the clinics there recording 200 cases of children battling with malnutrition. We've got the ward councillor there from Extension 13 of Olivenhout-Bosch with us this evening, Kenneth Marsha, just to talk us through the impact in terms of the lived realities in that community, and also joining us for this conversation, the Executive Director of Grow Great, serving on the Secretariat also of the Unite Against Hunger campaign, Dr. Edzani Mpapule, who is going to be with us as well, just breaking down the broader context of these issues. Let's start with Kenneth Marsha, the ward councillor there in Olivenhout-Bosch. Kenneth, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Power Perspective.
Good evening to you, Tessa, and good evening to the listeners of Power FM.
So, Kenneth, this comes out of a clinic in Oliven where we're talking about 200 children or 200 cases of malnutrition that has been found. Was this a shocking stat to you, given what you know about the community?
Thank you very much, Tessa. Let me start by giving a bit of background and clarity on this matter before we can actually deal with the reality. I'm the ward councillor for Ward 106, which includes 10 extensions of Olivenhout-Bosch. Extension 13 is but one of the 10 extensions, plus some of the plots at the back of the ward. So that is the area that I'm responsible for. The clinic concerned is located in Extension 13. However, it caters not only for this ward, it caters for other neighboring wards that includes Ward 77, Ward 48, and Ward 70. So these other wards, the clinic reaches out to those wards through a mobile clinic that rotates into those areas of Ward 70, Ward 77, and 48. So basically, in those wards, we have informal settlements. We have informal settlements in those areas. We've got informal settlements in those areas. Apologies, I was a bit distracted. I'm still driving. So what then will have happened is that a few weeks ago, I will have received a telephonic interview from one of the media houses. If I recall well, it would have been Sowetan, wherein they asked me about the shocking statistics that they had gotten from the local clinic. In my response to that was that I wasn't aware that there was such a situation at our clinic, that about 200 or so children had been diagnosed with malnutrition. So I had undertaken to actually find out further, because I enjoy a relationship with the facility manager of that particular clinic, to say that how could they have had such shocking statistics, and that would not have been brought to my attention. So upon further investigation, after engaging with the facility manager, we had found out that indeed the number would have been communicated. However, it would have been communicated erroneously. In their data capturing, the numbers were not captured properly, and they had been sent to the department, and I think one of the media houses will have picked it up at that level, that there were these high numbers of malnutrition reported from the Olivenhout-Bosch clinic. So subsequently, those numbers have been corrected, and in actual fact, from the current statistics, there are no cases of malnutrition that have been reported. The last numbers that had to do with the ward that I'm leading were 2 cases of malnutrition in the year of 2023. Currently, the number of 200 is neither here nor there as far as my area is concerned. there will have been around issues of 100 and so that they say they might have picked up during the outreaches that the mobile clinic does at the other areas where the informal settlement of Moiplas, informal settlement of the XT, and
all right, Kenneth, your line is breaking up there a little bit, but it seems that what you're saying, Kenneth, is that those numbers are an error and that there isn't an issue. However, there has been reporting that yourself and Kenneth is off the line now, so I'll speak about it when Kenneth comes back onto the line. But it is part of a broader reporting, and Dr. Mpapule, I want to bring you in on this one because there is a broader reporting of issues of increased hunger. So how does that square up with the idea that there may be 0 cases as opposed to 200?
Thank you so much, Tessa, for the question. I'm not fully aware of the nitty-gritties of the statistics in Gauteng, but it is unlikely that there would be 0 cases of malnutrition. I think maybe I might be referring to deaths from malnutrition, which could be possible that there are 0 deaths in that area from malnutrition. But when he comes back, he will reflect on those numbers. But
because what is the broader story that we have at the moment when it comes to malnutrition in the country?
The broader story that we have on malnutrition in South Africa is that we have a crisis in our hands. Countrywide, in the past 18 months, we've got over 900 children who've died from severe acute malnutrition in South Africa. In Gauteng, we have about 38 children who've died this year from malnutrition, and I think one child is one child too many. And those are just children who are dying or recorded to have died directly from malnutrition, excluding those children who die from infections where malnutrition is the underlying cause. So countrywide, we're talking about another almost altogether 20,000 children a year dying from malnutrition itself or malnutrition-related causes. And I think it's time that we declare it a crisis in the country and come together to figure out how do we prevent it from happening? How do we actually prevent those children from coming to the doorsteps of the clinic dying?
And Doc, maybe just first to understand what has caused this rise in cases, because we weren't talking about acute hunger and malnutrition in the ways that we are now, even though more than 20 years ago there was a determination for a child grant that was based on, at that point, making sure that we stave off hunger and malnutrition. But it does seem that we're having a different conversation now. What are the factors that are causing us to be concerned about hunger at this point in the country?
Thank you, Tessa. I think there's an increasing awareness that we can't accept hunger. It's been normalized for too long, and we I think as a country, we come into a state of abnormalizing hunger and reporting more on it and being outraged about the issue. But in terms of malnutrition, since the 1990s, the levels of malnutrition in South Africa have not really shifted. We've got levels of above 25% of children in the country who are stunted. That's children who are chronically malnourished, which means they've not had enough food over a long period, which we see by the child being too short for their age. And malnutrition in South Africa really, it's an intergenerational problem. We talk a lot about HIV being a mother-to-child transmission disease, mother-to-child transmission of HIV. We're preventing that. But what hunger and child malnutrition is, it's also a problem of mother-to-child transmission of poverty, and that's really where we need to start looking at. A mother who is malnourished during pregnancy, gives birth to a child who most likely will have a low birth weight, a child already with a ill-developed immune system, which means that if the child is again exposed to an environment where there's not enough food of good nutrition, any small infection that another child who is born from different pregnancy conditions will survive. That child will not survive. So a child born too small or a child who is stunted already when they're born, meaning that they're too short for their age, for when they get born, is 4 times more likely to die than a child who is born with a normal birth weight and a normal length at birth.
Got
so
you there.
already, children at the time of birth, depending on the environment in which their mother birthed them, are already starting in a back foot. And if they do survive, they are likely to have this condition of malnutrition that I'm talking about called stunting, which means that all their organs didn't develop well. So their brain didn't develop well because everything needs food to develop, needs good nutrition to develop. Their organs didn't develop well. Their immune system didn't develop well. And those children grow up to be children who struggle a lot in school because they didn't really grow up well, and they get sick a lot and miss school a lot because of weakened immune system. And when they grow up as adults, then they perpetuate, they're most likely to give birth to children who are in poverty again. So it's really a complex web of poverty.
And Dr. Mpapule, I do want us to come back to the question about adult hunger, because I do think that has its own particular markers as well. But I just wanted to bring Mr. Masha, Kenneth Masha, back into the conversation as the councillor. I hope the line is stabilized now.
Yeah, good evening once more, Tessa. I hope so too. Oliven having a myriad of issues, power outages. Actually, I just was driving in one of my areas where there's a power outage.
Got
so
you.
That's why my network will have cut off.
No, I appreciate that. I just wanted to get clarity on what you were saying earlier, that what was reported in error, and that in fact the number is closer to 0. And I wanted to ask if you are then saying that there isn't an issue of hunger and food insecurity, because that would go against some of the reporting, even from the Department of Health and others, who are saying that this is an area where there's high food insecurity, where there's high need for food parcels, and food parcels are being distributed on a continuous basis. So are you confident that the error that you're talking about does actually reflect reality?
Okay. Tessa, let me put it this way. Oliver Road Bosch, if you know the area very well, it's really one of the impoverished areas. However, there are interventions. This is now where I underscore. There are interventions, particularly on the side of government, with some of the NGOs that we have in the community, to deal with families, child-headed households where it's only children who are in those households, and they don't have any other sources of income. We have an NGO called Mafulo Ratisulu, which is based at the Ratisulu Primary School, which looks after children who are coming from such families during schooling hours, and after schooling hours they've got a program as well, where such families or such children can come and be given proper meals, and they're also given meals that they can take home. So there are those interventions. We will have had also relationships with some of the NGOs, like Mahlasedi, for example, who would have been involved with this community, particularly during the height of COVID, wherein over 33,000 food parcels were distributed in the community during that time, just to deal with the challenges that the community will face. So we are not disputing that the issues of poverty in the area. However, issues of the social grants that the government provides, and also some of the NGOs that are active, supported by the Department of Social Development, are making an intervention on those cases where there is a need from the families. Indeed, there are challenges of unemployment in the area and all of that. However, there's continuous work being done by the relevant departments to intervene on these matters.
And maybe I should ask you, as a ward councillor in the city of Joburg, what is the role... in the city of Tshwane. What is the role of local government when it comes to issues of hunger and food insecurity? So we are seeing that the Gauteng Department of Health and, as you say, departments of social development are some of the primary actors, and usually those are enacted from the level of national and province. But when it comes to the local level, what is the responsibility of the ward councillor, of the mayoral council, of the mayors of cities to make sure that hunger is dealt with in the cities that you run?
Thank you, Tessa. You will take note that as the councillors, we work together with our officials, particularly those from the social development, being our social workers, and some of the teams that they lead within the community. So their role is literally to go into the households, to check how the social standing of those particular households is like, and then they will then make recommendations to the Department of Social Development. In the city of Tshwane, for example, we've got a food bank under the Department of Social Development for those families that need support of government, and they get provided with food parcels as has been detected or determined by the social workers. So basically, that is the work that is being done. And our social workers will, from time to time, when they meet some of the extreme issues in the community, they will call me to say, "Councillor, we have encountered this particular situation in this place. Can you assist? Are there other programs like EPWP programs wherein these families can be assisted?" So there is that ongoing engagement between ourselves and the Department of Social Development.
Got you. Doc, I want to come back to you just on the question about what an effective response is here. We are talking about things like food banks. We are talking about things that feel to me like a reaction to the crisis of hunger. Are there more systemic solutions that should be looked at? And I mean, I think even something like a grant. We know that the childcare grant, for example, or the child grant, is meant to be one that's trying to stave off hunger. I'm not sure if that's a proactive enough position that should be taken. Is there more systemic solutions we should be looking at?
Yes, absolutely. And I think just with the child support grant in itself, it's not adequate at the levels that it's at right now. It's already below the food poverty line, which means that if all the money that a child got from the child support grant was used for buying their child food, it still wouldn't be sufficient.
What is the food poverty line at?
It's it's about 790, and our child support grant is around 560, which means
so just for clarity,
3% below.
You would need 790 rand in order to make sure that somebody does not go hungry in South Africa. An individual
to make sure that somebody doesn't die from hunger. So that's not even good nutrition, good basic nutrition, to make sure that they have enough calories. So if you're talking about good nutrition, you need about 900 rands for that. So if it's good nutrition, you need about 900 rands if you need, which means it's the child support grant is 44% below good basic nutrition, but 33% below the food poverty line, which is just keeping the child alive and having enough food calories to stay alive. So if we look at that, and we all know that the child support grant is not just used to buy food, it's used to buy all the supplies in the home for the child, school fees and many other things. So as a systemic response, that definitely one of the first things to do is to increase the value of the child support grant. In addition to that, it's also to have a very specific intervention for the first 1,000 days, from the time of pregnancy up until a child turns 2 years old, because that is the most unprotected time of a child's life in South Africa. And if you look at the deaths that are happening, we generally speak about the deaths as deaths under 5, but actually when you drill down on the numbers, it's really deaths for children under the ages of 3, because children who are of school-going age from about the age of 5 have the school nutrition program that, in addition to the child support grant that they're getting, they're at least guaranteed a meal at school. Children who are about between the ages of 3 and 5 who are going to an early learning center have some form of subsidy that provides a meal in the early learning center.
Yeah.
But children between the ages of 0 and 2 depend solely on the child support grant. And most of the time, because of challenges with home affairs and many other issues, cultural issues, most children only get access to the child support grant after the ages of 1. So close to the ages of 3, 2, but not in the time when they need it the most, the time of the most critical brain and body development, which is the first 2 years of life. In addition to that, the mother is also hungry. They need food. They need money to be able to buy food for themselves to eat so that they can breastfeed the child. But also that very time, the most critical time is that time from 6 months when the child starts needing additional food, complementary food to breast milk for them to survive, where most children fall through the cracks. And if you look between the ages of 6 months and the ages of 2 years, that's where children die the most from hunger. And we definitely need a very clear intervention that says, how do we close the food gap for children between the ages of 0 to 2 in the communities? But not only that, how do we find those children while they're still at risk before they slip into malnutrition? And you're right that the system, even the health system, is created in a very reactive way. So if as Grow Great, we train community health care workers, and we will be starting to partner with the city of Tshwane now from October to really come up with a system in terms of the health system where we strengthen community health care workers' ability to be able to go into the communities and detect children who are at risk of malnutrition before they slip into malnutrition and link them to the right services. And I think that's what a real solution will require: strong intersectoral collaboration between health, because health, as much as it diagnoses malnutrition or children at risk, does not prescribe food. And that there has to be that strong link between the Department of Health and the Department of Social Development, but also the Department of Home Affairs, to really ensure that at the start, when a child leaves a healthcare facility when they're born and they're eligible for a child support grant, they leave that health facility at birth with their birth certificate and also a child support grant, so that it starts from the earliest time of their lives when they need it the most. And that really will help. And in addition, in terms of systems, there's been a talk of a maternal support grant since 2012, which has been identified as a critical intervention that we need in South Africa, which means we start the child support grant in pregnancy, because what the makeup of the child and the health of the child is determined by the mother's condition during pregnancy. And we know that many mothers who work precarious jobs can't continue to work during pregnancy, because you can't continue to be training, to be doing this, and they aren't covered by UIF because they're mainly doing informal domestic work, which is unprotected, and they don't get then a paid maternity leave, which means that they're forced by pregnancy to stop working, and they are pregnant and hungry, which means their fetus is hungry and born hungry in hunger. And that's really why we need to extend that child support grant to start in pregnancy, so that when the child gets born, it just kicks in and it becomes the child support grant. So there is a strong need for financial support.
That as we start to wrap up this conversation, we do have to have a conversation, though, about adult hunger in the country as well. And I think when you talk about the child support grant being extended to pregnancy, that would be given to adults, adult mothers. And I'm wondering, as Kenneth has spoken about the interventions, if we are not too interventionist at a level of humanitarian aid to this or giving social support to it, but we're not being interventionist enough in terms of this as a priority, for example, in terms of income, in terms of people actually having access, because you were just raising there the fact that if you were working in informal sector, for example, you don't have access to UIF and those kinds of things. Is there something that needs to be done, just as we wrap up on this, when it comes to adults and ensuring that we don't have an adult hunger problem, not only a children hunger problem?
Absolutely. And I think from my perspective is that a hungry child is in a hungry family. So they're not hungry in isolation. And when we're thinking about food parcels, we shouldn't be thinking about a food parcel for the child, but a food parcel for the family in which that child is. But more broadly, we need to also be speaking around food prices and ensuring that food is more affordable for the whole family, so that the food that's bought is able to take the family through. And we see it when we give children therapeutic foods when they are malnourished as a prescription from a clinic. That food doesn't just go to the baby, it gets eaten by the whole family because that whole family is hungry. So we need to be thinking about a household solution for hunger, which tackles the issue of how do we make food accessible, because the people who are going to buy food, who need to buy food, how do we improve the income of that family to be able to buy food? Or how do we improve the skills and resources of that family to grow their own food? Because that's also another way of getting the food. And then how do we also then strengthen social support if that family, while the family is figuring themselves out to be able to buy their own food or grow their own food? Then those are really critical three things that we need to think about strongly and ensure they happen all together for that family.
And then, Councillor Masha, I want to end off with a word from you. Again, at the level of the city, you have spoken a little bit about the role of the city in terms of coordinating the social support part of this. Is it part of the agenda at the city level to actually start to deal with food insecurity? Do you believe that cities are doing enough?
Thanks, I'll step once more. I believe that the city is trying our level best, particularly with the intervention around food parcels. However, I would endeavor to say that we could do more in supporting the household in terms of creating their own gardens, so that they can supplement or complement whatever the amount that they are receiving from government as far as issues of child support grants and also the school nutrition that we have. I think there can always be more that can be done to assist households, particularly child-headed households, in making sure that they are food secure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That's Councillor Kenneth Masha, Ward Councillor in Olivenhout-Bosch in Tshwane. And we also had with us Dr. Idzani Mpapule, who is the Executive Director of Grow Great, serving also on the Secretariat of the Unite Against Hunger campaign. And that was a deep dive into looking at hunger, especially amongst children, but also amongst adults. I think we do underestimate the extent to which we are increasingly a country where millions of people are going to bed hungry. And this should not be the case in a country where we are actually seeing that we have a lot of food wastage, for example, where we have a surplus of food in some strata of society, but then we have people going hungry. Our biggest problem in this country truly remains inequality. And I know that the national question is one around race, because that inequality follows racial lines to this day so closely. But we have to ask the question, what is the cost of inequality? And the truth is, the cost is children dying of hunger in this country as it stands right now, even with us sporting all sorts of development facts and figures and trillions in our fiscus. We are still seeing a society where its children die hungry, and that is something we have to avert going into the future.